In the early 2000s, Hasbro started doing a lot of San Diego Comic-Con Star Wars items. And for the most part, they tended to be silver versions of figures. We already covered this with the R2-D2 Silver Edition a couple episodes back, and with another summer here and another Comic-Con, another silver figure was going to make its way into our hands, and this time it was Boba Fett, arguably one of the most popular Star Wars characters. Actually, R2-D2 is probably more popular, but Boba Fett is cooler. All right, now this particular Boba Fett was like all the silver figures, was a vac metallized, or in this case, painted figure. Didn't get the vac metal that R2 got, and it was a repaint of this one, the 300th Boba Fett that came out at the very beginning of the Power of the Jedi collection. It was one of those transition figures between Power of the Force 2 and Power of the Jedi, and honestly, you can really see that it, at the time, was very breakthrough. It had more decos, more articulation, more posability than most figures at the time. Of course, now this has been surpassed by the vintage collection, but I mean, if you were going to compare the 300th Boba Fett to the original Power of the Force 2 version, which had that sort of bulked up muscular look that was popular in the early 90s, you can see that they obviously chose the right figure to do a repaint of. Well, originally we got this figure in a nice window box with diorama. Obviously, Comic-Con was going to give us just a card back with a figure with one dipped paint op. Well, actually, it's probably spray painted is what they do when there's one paint op. Now, Boba Fett gets repainted a lot because, well, he's popular, and painting him in all silver paint was basically an easy redeco. Now, why silver paint? Why one color? Obviously, this is linked to the San Diego Comic-Con, I guess, releases that they've been doing at this time, but a lot of people look at unpainted figures like this as a prototype, and hey, they probably actually could have had more success just offering the figure in, prototype colors or something like that, since the infamous Boba Fett prototype with the missile-firing feature. Although actually, Hasbro has released what they call sort of prototype colored Boba Fetts. It's more in that mix and match, which indicates whatever color plastic was in the machine at the time that it was being, the prototypes are really what these are called first shots. So this is a first shot imitation. It's recreating what a first shot is. Now, some of the other times you do unpainted figures are when they're clear, and McFarlane Toys really kind of jumped on this in the early 90s at the time that adult action figure collecting was really becoming into prominence, if you will, as a hobby. And while some of their early redecos were done in all clear to signify sort of ectoplasm or Spawn's powers, they soon switched over to kind of what is happening in Hasbro Star Wars, which are gold and silver figures, all painted. Now, this is completely done for a cost standpoint. At San Diego Comic-Con, you're going to sell fewer figures, so you want a figure that's going to cost less. And with the figures that McFarlane were pumping out, again in both silver and gold deco, were really there to offset the cost of more expensive figures in the assortments. This way they could pass along the savings, or rather reallocate deco to larger figures by offering things like this, like an all-gold version. Star Wars did it too, after the Episode 9 fiasco, where they released a series of figures painted in all-gold deco, trying to, I guess, show value, that these are like treasure, these are like trophies you want to have on your shelf. I guess we'll cover this when we get to it in probably several years from now before we get to this episode. But yeah, Hasbro does have a reputation, or at least a record, of kind of going back to the well on solid colored figures for, I guess, promotional opportunities like Comic-Con. This one, though, did have something different, and that was the fact that if you bought it at the convention, well, unlike other Boba Fett figures that were offered at San Diego Comic-Con, and unlike other silver Boba Fett figures offered at Comic-Con, yeah, it's crazy that there's been multiples, this one came with a signature, and a very important signature, that being, unlike R2-D2, which was just a regular vac metal figure, Jeremy Bullock, the original actor who played Boba Fett, was there in person. He also played an Imperial officer, which I still don't understand why we haven't gotten a figure of that. The back of the card featured just a black and white photo, which is a great place for Jeremy to have signed your figure. Or he could sign it across the front. You basically had your choice. But the thing was, you had to be standing in the right place at the right time, and oddly, I was. It's one of the craziest coincidences, I think, of my entire toy hunting career, is I went over to, at the time, the Hasbro booth, and I wanted to pick up a silver Boba Fett, and I was told that they wouldn't start selling them until Jeremy Bullock came. And I asked, well, what time is he going to be here? And they said, well, just get in line and he'll show up when he shows up. And I thought about it and I was like, well, I don't really want to wait in line. And then suddenly, I'm being told, okay, well, you need to go stand over there if you're going to be in line. I'm like, well, I'm not in line. No, Jeremy Bullock is here. I'm like, what? Literally, the line formed behind me. I found myself standing right in front of him. I was the very first person in line. I was not expecting that. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Boba Fett's right here. So I wound up buying two. I bought one for him to sign and one for me to open since I'm an opener. But that's crazy because I would have probably never waited in a line, like a 3-hour line to get Jeremy to sign it. But I literally happened to be standing right in front of where he came out. And after being told to move, I was then told, oh, no, wait, don't move. Just stand still. Let the line form around you. Crazy. Those are one of those just fun kind of things that happens at San Diego Comic-Con. It's kind of like that time Stanley stole my newspaper. But that's a YouTube video for another time. So the silver San Diego Comic-Con Star Wars figures would continue, this time being plussed up a little bit with a signature of a amazing actor who helped bring Fett to the screen. And for those who keep them in package, you had a nice bonus. Of course, if you ripped yours open, then you just got a silver painted 300th action figure Boba Fett, which is, I guess, what I kind of wound up with. Although I still have my signed one on the wall, which is pretty neat.